Okay, I want to show you something in clustering. Um, in the cluster interface, there's a button called, and under cluster mode, there's classes to clusters evaluation. And what that does is, after Weka clusters your data, um, then it checks to see the most prevalent class. You know, you might have a class variable. Usually in clustering, um, you don't you don't think about classes. Clustering is called unsupervised, and basically that means you don't have a class variable. So normally you don't have a class variable when you're clustering. Um, but if you do have a class variable, you could leave it out of the clustering procedure, and then afterwards, after you've gotten the cluster, suppose you've gotten like 4 different clusters, you could say, okay, now here's one cluster of records, here's another cluster of records, here's another cluster of records. There's going to be like 4 clusters of records. Now you can say, okay, now how about the records in the first cluster? Well, in this case, we actually have a class variable, so we could say, for those records in the first cluster, what's the most common class from the class variable? And so that's kind of very interesting because it sort of enables you maybe to name the clusters in terms of the class variable. So that's kind of interesting. So that's what this allows you to do: classes to clusters evaluation. So let's get some data. So actually, I'll get some data. I'll just use the standard data from Weka. So I'll go into the Weka installation, which is where C drive, and go down to Weka. I'm just going to get some data from Weka. They give us some data. I'll go down to Program Files, and then go down to Weka, and data. So they give you some default data sets. I'll use this one called weather nominal. In fact, before I use it, let me just open it, if I can, somehow. How can I open it? Let's try this. I'll open it with WordPad. So I'll do this. Weather nominal. Okay, let's see. Can you see that? No. Okay, here's the data set. It's a very small data set. The data is right here, from here to here, so it's very small. There's only, I think, only 14 records. The first record is sunny. So the variables are outlook, and that can be sunny, overcast, or rainy. Temperature, hot, mild, cool. Humidity, high and normal. Windy, true and false. And playing golf, yes or no. This is a famous basic data mining data set, and all of the variables are nominal. They're all categorical variables, right? There's no numeric variables here. So like the first record, just to review this, is here. So on this day it was sunny, it was hot, the humidity was high, it wasn't windy, and they didn't play golf, and so on. Okay, so you have 14 pieces of data. Okay, so that's what this data looks like. So I'm going to open that with Weka. Whoops, not with that. With that. Pardon me. So here is this one. I want to open this one. Okay, so you can see outlook over here. It's a nominal variable. Temperature is nominal. And over here, temperature, 3 values that it could take: hot, mild, or cool. And it counts. There are 4 cases of hot, 6 of mild, and 4 of cool. And this is the histogram. And the overlay, the color overlay here, is play. So in here, some of them, this was what? Hot. I think this is hot. And there were 4 cases of hot, and it looks about 50-50 they played and they didn't play, and so on. Anyway, that's the way this is. So let's go to cluster up here. And I just use a simple k-means clustering. And I'm just going to choose to break this up into 4 clusters. That's kind of a lot for only 14 cases of data, but this is just to see what it looks like. So I'm going to set this to 4 and click OK. And then I'm going to do it without using this one first, just to see what happens when I don't use it. And I click Start. It's very quick. It's finished. So we have the 4 clusters here. 0, 1, 2, 3, 0, 1, 2, and 3. That's 4. And we can see that Outlook, what does this mean? Outlook was rainy. I guess this is the most prevalent Outlook value for this cluster, for this cluster, for this cluster, and for that cluster. So like in cluster 0, the outlook was mostly, in most of the cases, I guess, were rainy. Most of the cases were mild as compared to the other variables, other values of temperature. In terms of humidity, it was in this particular cluster, it was normal, and it was not windy, and they did play. So this is like a cluster where they did play. Okay, actually it looks like this kind of gives me what I was trying to do in the other. But anyway, let's do the other. So let's now choose this one. Classes to cluster evaluation. So this is going to give you, seems like it's just giving me this information down here. But anyway, let's try it. Classes to clusters evaluation should assign the most prevalent class. In this case, the class is play. So let's do it. So I guess it probably did the same thing that we just saw. Cluster 0, let's check it. Cluster 0 is yes, and cluster, oh, I know what I meant to do. Anyway, cluster 0 is yes. No, somehow, I don't know why it says no class and no class. Maybe, not sure about that. So anyway, here it's assigning to cluster 0, yes was most prevalent. Cluster 2, no was most prevalent. But over here it says these are yes, so I'm not quite sure about that. Maybe you can figure that out. Now the other issue is that I meant actually not to include, not sure if this works, I don't want to include play. But I don't know. Well, I'm going to leave it like this for now and let you play around with this a little bit more. If you have any questions or comments, please post them on the website here.